Hello again, everybody. This is Dan Clouser, and welcome back to the Journey of My Mother's Son podcast. Today I'm joined with Dr. Daphne Erhart, who is an international life coach, psychologist, master NLP practitioner, author, speaker, and solo female world traveler, which we're going to talk a lot about. Daphne, thanks for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me, Dan.
Absolutely. Really looking forward to this conversation. But
Me
before
too.
we get started, just introduce yourself to the listeners. Who is Daphne today?
Oh, I love that word at the end today because I have been different throughout my life. I take pride in creating my life and being on purpose, living on purpose. So my name's Daphne. You can call me Daphne. I'm Dr. Daphne Erhart. I happen to be a psychologist, but I'm a lot more than that. I am a, a person who loves to travel the world. I love people. I love animals. I love nature. I love being out in the nature. I am a master NLP practitioner and do a lot of things with stress management and self-care expert. I help people learn how to create a life that they love. I've written 3 books. The last one came out 1 week ago. It's on parenting. And I'm here with Dan today because we connected through our love of travel. So I am traveling the world this year by myself, and I am doing something similar that I think he's doing with his wife as well, just kind of not having too much of an agenda and just going. So I started a little over 6 months ago. I'm on my 6 month break right now. And I started in Central America. I had to think about it for a second. I started in Central America, did just a couple of countries there that when I had gone to before, Guatemala, and when I had never been to, Belize. And then I went to Southeast Asia and then Europe. And I'm taking a little breather, deciding where I'm going to go next.
Yeah. I love it. And again, that is definitely the main connection here when I reached out to you to have you on the show, and I saw, solo female traveler, really made me think of my mom. And obviously the title of the podcast being The Journey of My Mother's Son. I think you and my mom could have certainly been, kindred spirits, because she was a solo female traveler. She didn't do it around the world. She did it across the U.S. in an old 1967 Plymouth Valiant, and took the back seat out of it and stuck a sheet of plywood in there and a mattress and just went on her way. So I think that's really cool. And, one of the reasons why I really wanted to talk to you. So, tell me a little bit about, what was the inspiration to just, get out and see the world?
Yeah. Where do I start? Well, I've always loved traveling. I grew up on the East Coast and I always wanted to live where there were palm trees. I ended up going to school where there are palm trees in California. And I've made a point throughout my life, wherever I happen to be, whether it's in California, whether it's in Nebraska, where I did my undergraduate degree, wherever I am, to really explore that area and really connect. The type of travel I'd like to do is not the type where you go there and you could be anywhere in the world. You could be in the US. No, I like to go and live like a local. I love meeting new people. I love just experiencing even the public transportation, talking to people, hearing their stories, connecting with our hearts. It feels so good. Um, so as even a teenager and child, I've always loved it, and I just did everything within my power to visit 49 states within the US. And then in my 30s, my mid 30s, is when I actually started traveling outside the US. I didn't really have the opportunity until then. And any opportunity I got, I would take. The first one that really touched my heart was, I think I was 36 years old and I was on Groupon. I was on a little app to look at like Groupon, and I saw the trip of my dreams, and I was thinking, is this for real? Does this really exist? It was it was on something I found out was called Semester at Sea, which I didn't know about it until then. It's the semester where college students can actually travel the world for a semester. I was never lucky enough to have any kind of experience like that, but I think it's great. And it was during one of their breaks, and it was for 25 days. It was a month. It was only like $2,500 for going to 10 different countries. We started in Bahamas. We went down to Jamaica, down to, where was it? Colombia. We went through the Panama Canal, down to Ecuador, Peru, saw Machu Picchu, came up the other coast, Nicaragua, Guatemala, Costa Rica. I'm sure I'm missing some, and ended up in San Diego. So it was like my dream. And I was like, I have to do this. I have to. So I did it, and I didn't know one soul. And I had never been on a cruise except for one 3-day cruise before, where I felt like a little bit sick. And I was like, what am I doing? Am I going to be able to make it through 25 days in a smaller boat with nobody I know? But it was the most incredible initiation to travel in my life. I made my roommate, we matched. She's like a sister to me, even 10 years later. It was just incredible. So 2020 comes along, and we're all stuck. We're all stuck in wherever we happen to be. And I had just, because of 2020, I had to do everything remote. March, overnight, all of a sudden, what I had wanted to do for so long came true. I was able to work remote. Was forced to not move out of my house, not go out of my house, and work remotely. And from that, it was kind of like me being pushed out of the nest, you know. You've always wanted this, overnight, here it is, Daphne. So I did it. What I'd been praying for probably all my life, it just happened like that. And then from there, I kind of uh, created more opportunities. Now I'm an international life coach, and I do trainings for how to nurture your soul for companies. So if you ever want any me to come by, let me know, send me a message. But I kind of created the lifestyle little by little, and I looked up different countries, and it actually was cheaper to live in most other countries and live simply. I have one big suitcase and one small suitcase. For 6 months I've been living like that, and it's been beautiful. And so that is my story of how I started.
And it really is freeing, you know. I mean, I know when we sold all of our stuff to move into the RV, you know, so many people ask me, you know, what was it like to just sell all of your belongings? And I tell everybody, you know, amazingly, um, it was very liberating, you know. And everything that we own, you know, is in a roughly 300 square foot motorhome at this point, and we're, you know, completely fine with it. And you know, we kind of have a rule that, you know, one in, one out rule. You know, so if we buy a new
Yeah.
shirt, an old shirt's got to go. If we buy a new pair of socks, an old pair of socks has to go. You know, so yeah, you know, society has just created this huge cycle of consumerism, and it's just something that, you know, that just absolutely is not needed. And I think it's so much more important to get out there and collect memories and collect experiences as it is, you know, collecting things.
Me
um,
too.
I
Yes.
remember, you know, specifically one time my wife coming up the stairs from our basement as we were downsizing, and looking at me and just, man, how did we get so much crap? You know, we'd been in our house for 20 years, and you know, there was stuff there that we hadn't used or looked at or touched in, you know, probably since the day we moved in. Um,
Yeah.
so, you know, to hear what you're doing and really living that minimalist lifestyle as well, and you know, the experiences, I think is huge. But I want to go back to one of the things you mentioned, because you know, one of the things that we love, and obviously we're not traveling around the world, we're just, you know, pretty much in the US, and we'll get into Canada at some point here. But the people that we've met have been so amazing. And I know that's one thing that you mentioned is, you know, really getting an experience in the culture, and meeting the people.
Yeah.
You know, we live in such a polarized climate, but I think if you're looking for good people, you can find good people. So tell me a little bit about, your experience with the people you've met.
Oh, yes, that's so true. People ask me, "Aren't you lonely, Daphne?" I mean, I've been to 19 countries in within approximately 6 months, not knowing anyone to begin with. But you know what? At this point, I've probably met 50 people. I feel so supported by people and by the world because I do meet people everywhere I go and I make genuine friends. And I think what you said is so true. You can find what you're looking for anywhere. It depends on what your eyes are seeing, what it we project a lot. So if we're open, I walk into a local grocery store or coffee shop to do my work or whatever, and I say hello and I'm present with someone, and I meet so many people this way. Every single location, let me think about this for a second. I've made so many stops, and I think at every location I can think of one special person that I have remained friends with, whether we're connected on social media or WhatsApp or something. We know how to connect with each other if we want to. It could have been in a taxi, it could be while volunteering with um, for fresh water in Laos or with elephants or on a train. Oh my goodness. On this train, I went on this train ride one time from Germany to Switzerland, and uh, there were two people facing me and then me and some stranger right next to me. I could have stayed quiet the whole time, not made eye contact, never smiled, but I wasn't overly friendly, but they started playing a game and it was very curious. I was very curious about what the game was. It was a very interesting card game they brought. It was about finding it was a great travel game. You try to solve a mystery verbally somehow. Really fascinating. But they were speaking in another language, Dutch. I don't know any I know a lot of Spanish, but not some other languages. And I ended up just being so curious. I just had to ask them a question about it. And and then the four of us ended up talking about how to solve this mystery. And then we became friends and we, for an hour or two, ended up playing this game together, staying in touch. And we experienced breathtaking, gorgeous views going by. And it was so nice to experience that with somebody else, kindred spirit. So to answer your question, that's the most beautiful part of travel, I think. Um, yes, I see different things in nature. That's also beautiful, breathtaking natural beauty in the world. But the people, we travel for the cultures, and people make up cultures. Individual people make up cultures. And just having that connection feels so good. We're not all so different. We all have hearts. And it feels so good to connect with people throughout the world.
Yeah, I love it. And I really am an introvert at heart, but one of the things I've found is through our travels, I've actually become more extroverted for sure. Because I think, for us with the RV lifestyle, I think immediately you kind of have a common ground and you meet someone, in a
Yeah.
campground or something like that. So it kind of breaks down that first initial barrier. So I've found that travel has actually gotten me out of my comfort zone and out of my shell a little bit. And again, the people we've met have been absolutely incredible. Um, did that part of your travels surprise you? Were you surprised at how many people you connected with?
Um, in a way, yes, in a way, no, because of my travels, my small amount of travels before, I always had that experience. I mean, I've always felt more connected when I'm in some foreign place than necessarily at my local grocery store. That might, and I'm taking ownership of that. That might be because it's mundane to me and I'm not open-hearted when I walk in my own post office or whatever. I'm going to work on that. But it surprised me in a good way sometimes, a lot of times. Yeah, I would say that.
So cool. I'm going to ask you a question you probably won't be able to answer because when people ask us this question, I know I can't answer it. Um, have you found a favorite spot that you've been to?
I know. I was wondering if you were going to ask me that question. I don't know how to answer it, but you know how hard it is to answer. Every new place I go, I'm gushing about it, and I think it's my new favorite. But there are a few that are standing out to me for some reason today, this day. One of them is Iceland for the natural beauty. It was the last one I went to. Iceland was really, really uh, I've never seen anything like that. It felt like I was on another planet. Gorgeousness. Also, Vietnam was amazing. Uh, very gorgeous terrain like I've never seen in the mountains and in the water, Halong Bay. The food was probably the best I've ever experienced in the world. The people, the culture, and the safety, and it, oh my goodness, my heart. Those are the two that stand out to me
Yeah.
today.
Yeah.
What
And
about you? Or I should turn,
yeah, tomorrow
yeah.
could be two other ones because we're the same way. It's
Yeah.
like, well, man, this place is great. Oh, but wait, this place is great. So we can't, and we've so many people ask us that question and we just can't answer it. It's like, well, can I give you my top 10? Oh, wait, can I give you my top 15? Can I? Because there are just so many. I mean, and again, we're just doing it in this country, and there's just so much beauty right here, in our
Um,
country.
how
Um,
long do you usually stay in one location?
it varies. We are on the move a lot. I mean, we actually have not traveled a whole lot this year, just because we had some personal family issues we were dealing with. Sadly, we've lost a couple family members this year, so we've been in Pennsylvania a lot. Um, but on a normal year, I mean, probably the longest we've been in one spot is a month. And that's usually if we're doing a volunteer project. But
Oh,
most times we're in and out in probably anywhere from 4 to 7 days in one location. Um,
wow.
so we have been on the move a lot, but yeah, there's just so much to see. And I mean, all of our
Mm,
national parks are incredible. You know, Montana and everything out west was just
Utah.
mind blowing. But yeah, Utah was absolutely beautiful. So yeah, you just can't answer that question, and it's just a matter of what's going to come into your head in that moment when somebody's asking you
Right.
that question. But um, so how do you overcome the language barrier? You said you speak English and Spanish, but other than that, you don't speak all these other languages. So how do you overcome that? Because obviously that's not something that we have to address here, you know, in the in the
Oh, yeah,
U.S.
good question. Well, now that I think about it, only the first two countries I went to, Belize and Guatemala, excuse me, spoke like Spanish. Actually, Belize, their official language is English. Uh, First of all, there's this wonderful app called Google Translate, and almost all of the locations I've been to, the app works for both written and audio. I think there's some languages, like when I went to Lao, they didn't have the audio, so that was a little bit more difficult. If someone was talking to me and I didn't know how to type it in, that would be hard. But I could always type in English and it would translate it to written Lao. But you know what? Even without that Google Translate app, which is wonderful, even without that, there's some every time I would go to new country, I would look up three things. I would look up hello, I would look up thank you, and I would also look up briefly the money exchange rate with the dollar, which I would have to look up 20 times because I would always forget anyway. But those are the three things I would look up at least beforehand. I would try some more things, but depending on how complicated the language was, I would just be happy if I can remember those two. But even trying one tiny little bit, excuse me, I noticed that if you go into another language and you don't know anything, but you try, you don't care about looking dumb or messing up or anything, but you're putting yourself out there and you try your hardest, they'll see that and they'll try as well. And that's when the heart connection comes in, the rapport, because it's much more than the language. eye contact. And I've learned to do a lot of sign language, creating sign languages, pointing to things. Sometimes I think ahead of time if I'm going into a area. Oh my goodness. Can I tell you a story? Really quick story. Uh, there was one time when I was going into an area with no Wi-Fi, so I knew I would not have Google Translate. And where was I? I think I was in Vietnam, and I was trying to get to this place. It was the last bus of the day. I didn't know where to find. So a taxi driver was going to drop me off at the bus station. I was going to have about 9 minutes to get onto the correct bus to find it. And there were probably 100 buses, hundreds of people. I didn't know what the sign said. I didn't know which counter to go up to. So difficult. But one thing I learned is just put one foot in front of the other, take the next right step. So I tried. I would ask one person, they wouldn't know. I would ask another person. And actually, when I thought of it ahead of time that this is going to be a challenge, and what I did was when I was at the hotel before I even left, I looked up 2 or 3 phrases that I would need, like, would how do I get to the bus to blah blah blah, or something like that, and then I would copy and paste it or take a screenshot. So when I excuse me, when I got there, I was able to show them the screen. Just little things like that, just winging it, not having to be perfect, I guess.
You become pretty know intuitive there and how to figure out how to get it done when you don't have any other options.
Yes.
That's pretty cool. So, you mentioned you are still working while you're traveling. So how, with your coaching and that sort of stuff, how do you work that into your travel schedule?
Well, one thing I try to explain to everyone every time I go somewhere is I'm not on vacation. I'm not on an endless vacation. This is my lifestyle. I just happen to be living in blah, 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 whatever city it is, but I'm still working. So um, I block off a time, and usually that time kind of overlaps the US time, so it could be early or late. And when I have jet lag, it works out fine. It always ends up working out fine. I block off time and I just remind myself this is your lifestyle. And luckily, I'm interested in what I do and I'm excited about what I'm doing. I've been creating meditations recently to help people deal with stress, help them sleep. Uh, I've been I was able to connect with some businesses and do something called Soul Spa over the computer, which is wonderful. Just like we're doing right now over Zoom, we're able to see each other, we're able to connect and have real conversations. So I've just made it work. Flexibility is key to travel, whether it comes to communicating, getting work done, not getting too attached with having to have things the way I'm used to in the
Yeah.
US.
Yeah. And I can relate to
I
that as well.
imagine you, yes, I was going to ask you that.
Yeah. Cause, obviously with podcasting and, still writing and, working in speaking engagements wherever I can, it's still, it's just a matter of time management, so if I know we're going to be, you know, on the road, traveling between destinations, I just have to block that out. And those aren't days that I'm going to be able to, record a podcast or something like that. I mean, one of the benefits to us being in Pennsylvania and not being on the move a whole lot this year is that I have really been able to kind of double down on my podcasts and, I've released, so many more podcasts this year than what I've done in previous years. So again, it's balancing and, managing it and like I said, being flexible and making sure just working it in. So um,
Yeah.
I think just, the flexibility is probably the easiest thing to, for anyone who's considering a lifestyle like ours, where you're still working, but yet you're traveling and you're seeing, whether it's the country in an RV or a station wagon or whatever, or traveling the world like, yourself, you know, my advice to them would be, like you said, just be flexible and understand that you can make it work. but it's not going to be the traditional way that you go about business.
Yes, exactly.
So what it, I mean, we've covered a lot, and there's so much more to cover. I mean, I feel this is one of those podcasts that could go on forever, but you still got
Yeah.
to kind of reel it in at times. So maybe we'll end up, you know, somewhere we'll be crossing each other's paths and do a podcast in person or something somewhere. Who knows? But is there anything that we didn't cover that you'd like to bring to the attention of listeners that you think would be beneficial to them?
I think this is probably a pretty good stopping point. Maybe one small thing I'll add that I have experienced and noticed in myself that I've changed from when I started out to now. I trust myself a lot better, and that flexibility is key, as well as keeping a goal in mind. So, because of COVID and everything opening up within the last 6 months, it's been crazy. Traveling has been chaotic, more chaotic than I think it ever has in the world. Everyone all at once is getting the trains, and things are not there. The systems are not used to it. So I've had to be very flexible. However, I cannot give up. So I have had many times where I have to keep in mind, I'm going to find a way to make it to my next destination. I'm going to find a way. I'm not going to stress about it. And I'm going to be able to, if I need to stand up in line in the hot sun for 3 hours straight, not knowing what's going on because language, at least I have a bottle of water with me. I have my necessities. I'm prepared. I can work on editing on my phone or something, and I have a charger. Um, and I'm going to meet my goal. I'm going to find a way, So the combination of flexibility and not giving up.
Flexibility and determination, no doubt about it.
Determination, yes. Thank
So,
you.
Daphne, how do people find you if they want to reach out for any of your coaching services or
Yeah.
anything that you do? How can they find you on the internet?
My website is spaforthesoul.com, spa the number 4, thesoul.com. And I also have a few books out, just our parenting teens that struggle with video games book just came out. It reminded me of your mom a little bit, because it sounds like she was so adventurous, and there are probably lots of parents that want to know how to, parent in a way that feels congruent and not too stressful. So we kind of walk you through some things in the parenting book. Also, Amazon, I have a book called Shrink, which is a lifestyle book, how to live a healthy lifestyle naturally, and then online dating, get her to swipe right book. But I would say spaforthesoul.com.
Cool. Everything can be found there. Cool.
Yes.
Awesome. Daphne, I really appreciate you being on the show. And that brings us to our final question. As you know, the subtitle of the podcast is Many Little People in Many Little Places, which comes from the opening lyrics of Michael Frante's song Gloria. And that goes, when many little people in many little places do many little things, then the whole world changes. So it's one of the little things that Daphne does on a daily basis to make the world a little bit better place.
What I do on a daily basis to make the world a better place is I, on purpose, live with my heart open.
Love that.
Consciously open my heart and connect with people that way.
Love that. And we definitely need more of that in the world. Because again, I think when you do that and you understand that we have more in common that we have, not in common, it does make the world a little bit better place for sure. So again, Daphne, I really appreciate you taking the time. This is a great conversation for folks out there listening. Be sure to check out my other podcasts and blogs at journeymymotherson.com or danclouser.com. While you're there, pick up a copy of my most recent book, The Journey of My Mother's Son, Volume 1. Again, Daphne, really appreciate you taking the time, and good luck.
Thank you so much. Yes, thank you so much, Dan. You have an amazing podcast. Really happy to be here with you, and hopefully our paths cross again soon.
Absolutely. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.